comic book nerds. It's Bryan back here on Tales from the Longbox. I am sort of the Lone Ranger this week. Paul is taking a night off. He'll be back for Paul's pull list later this week. Danny is still missing in action, and we're going to send a team of commandos or ninjas to find Danny Wade and bring him back. Something like that. I don't know. Danny will be back. Don't worry. So you're stuck with me here on the weekly roundup for Tales from the Longbox. Before we get into the week's items, let me reiterate that this show is powered by Anchor.fm. And there's kind of a cool feature that Anchor has where if you go to the landing page for the show, there's a message option. And you, the listener, can leave a voice message for us. And you can give us questions, you can give us comments, you can call us poop heads, whatever you want to do, really. It's okay. We want to hear from you. We're trying to encourage somebody. Be the one to break the ice. Do this for us. Okay, go and leave one of these messages. Nobody's done it yet. We don't know how it works, what it sounds like. So we'd like for somebody to do it so we can see what happens when they do. So to encourage you, we're bribing you. So number one, if you want, we will play your recorded message on the show. If you don't, we'll just leave that in the note and we won't play it on the show. But if you want it to be on the show, certainly we will put it on the show. We will respond directly to your question or your comment here on the show. Or be the first one to do this because we're going to give away a set of 2 Doom shot glasses. That's from the video game Doom. They are brand new. They are from a loot crate. And we're just going to give those to the first person who actually leaves us one of these voice messages so that we can see what it's all about. So be the first one. That's all you got to do. Just go do it. Leave a voice message. So if you're seeing my ugly mug, you're watching our YouTube channel, but you may not know that we have a podcast. So all this stuff will be down below in the show notes and in the description, and you can click on all sorts of links. There'll be a link to the podcast. There'll be a link to our other podcast, World Class Nerd, where we talk about TV shows and movies and sci-fi and fantasy and all that sort of cool stuff. There'll be a link to our website, which has reviews and articles and things like that. It's pretty heavily comic themed, to be honest. Even though it's World Class Nerd, but it is very heavily comic centric at the moment. So also you can follow us on Twitter, the handle at World Class Nerd 1. And I think that's most of the links. You can go also and buy a t-shirt with the cool World Class Nerd logo on it, or buy our new Mandalorian themed shirt if you're into Star Wars stuff or Mandalorian at all. Okay, so that's a lot of nonsense that I've thrown at you, and now on to other things. So on the most recent episode of Paul's Pull List, Paul and I talked about this week being a big week of comics. A lot of stuff coming out, and a lot of stuff that we were both kind of really excited about. And there's a lot from Marvel and DC, and just a good week from all appearances. We struggled to boil them down to a top 5, but I'm gonna have to say that this week, unlike last week had a lot of stuff. But kind of disappointed with the content. This week did not disappoint at all. This was a really awesome week full of comics. So we'll step into those in just a minute. I got some news for you though. We'll talk about some news from the comics world. Number one, we're going to talk about the comic that leads into this later. But this is a big piece of news. It has been officially announced that Joel Jones is going to be helming a Wonder Girl ongoing comic at DC Comics starring Yara Flor. This is dated before the Future State Wonder Woman series with Yara Flor, but brings the same creative team back. And listen, I would just go ahead and pre-order that subscription right now if I could. If they would give me a link where I could just go ahead and send them money and say, sign me up and send me an issue every month, I would do that. I loved that series, and we'll get to that in a little more depth later. But that's some awesome news. An ongoing Wonder Girl series with Yara Flor. I can't wait for that. She has been absolutely the breakout character of Future State so far. So, next piece of news. Like, I'm going to hit you with a couple of bad news stories here because I need something to complain about, because most of the comics that I'm going to talk about for this week are really good. So to break up the monotony of me just gushing about comics, let me rant about something, because that's what I do. I rant. Piece of news out of Marvel's camp. This has been kind of broken all over the internet. If you're reading the Avengers storyline about the Phoenix Force and you don't want to have spoilers for an issue that hasn't come out yet, then stop here. There's your opportunity. Walk away now. You haven't walked away? Okay, then it's on you. It's on your head that you hear these spoilers. Okay, this is stupid news, guys. This is stupid. So the Phoenix entity, apparently Odin and a possessed woman with the Phoenix Force in the distant past got it on. They did things, and they were lovers. Um, that's kind of silly, but okay, whatever. Here's the problem. They are now retconning this to the point that Thor is the love child of Odin and the Phoenix Force. So forget all that Norse mythology, Odin and Freya stuff. That's nonsense. Throw that away. That was just silliness. Why would you ever do that? No, it's the Phoenix Force that is his mama. Yeah. So that was really dumb news. That's a silly move. I can't find anyone so far who is for this idea. Everybody is ridiculing this and is like, that's terrible. It just seems like this particular writer, I won't name him, but it seems like this particular writer just really wants to shake everything about Thor up relentlessly. Like leave nothing the way it was. And I'm not going to get into the rant about just leaving a trail of destruction in the character's history to mark your time in its history. But seriously, dude, must you change everything about Thor? Everything? I think that's his intention. So to me, this is just a dumb thing. Nobody likes this. But if that news was creating a bit of a buzz in the comic world during the early part of the week, well, DC, I guess, felt like, hey, they're getting some kind of publicity, even if it's bad publicity. So really terrible news from the comics world from Marvel caused DC to leave someone at some point later in the week holding their beer. And DC said, let's just go a step further. So, story out of Comic Book Resources, saying that DC Comics is going to change the name of Black Adam to to Shazadam. Shazadam. This isn't a joke. They're changing his name to Shazadam. Yeah, because that's the change we've all been waiting for, right? People who were on the fence about Black Adam, it was because of his name, I guess, and they were desperately hoping for a new name for the character of Black Adam before they decided whether they liked to read comic books about him or not. But along comes Dwayne Johnson to play him in a movie, and for some reason now is the time to change his name to Shazadam. Shazadam. Okay, look, that news is just too silly to even dwell on. All right, it's actually the reason Paul isn't here this week. Paul is a big Shazam family guy, and he's always loved Black Adam as well. So Paul took this opportunity to take out his rage on DC Comics. I guess he was on his way to the DC offices. They got wind of it, and using a Phantom Zone projector, they have sent Paul Davis into the Phantom Zone to protect themselves. So we'll try our best to extract Paul from the Phantom Zone and bring him back to the real world for the next episode. That's enough news because that's just silliness. All right. Well, let's jump into the comics of the week. I've already started kind of down the road of Wonder Woman #2, Future State Wonder Woman #2. Look, guys, color me oblivious sometimes. I get so caught up in the thrill of the comics that I miss the details. I was unaware that most of these are just going to be 2 issues, and that the Future State event was going to end so quickly. Like if you were in it for Wonder Woman, you got 2 issues and that's it. It's done. So I was a little disappointed that it was over so quickly. I was hoping for like 4 issues of this to give it a proper good run, but it didn't matter. It just didn't matter because this was 2 super fun issues. This one leaned a little more into some emotion and showed a little different side of Yara Flor, but still a lot of adventure, a lot of humor. The colors just pop. The art is spectacular. Joel, you are awesome. Um, this was good. Everything about this comic was good. We get to see some different kind of emotions from Yara as she deals with the fact that she ultimately is not able to rescue one of her fellow warriors from the afterlife, from Hades. She's not able to bring her back, and she has to kind of deal with that. And you see a little more of a remorseful side from her, some guilt, but vulnerability, I guess, is what I'm looking for. It was good. I mean, you saw the hot headed side of her. Got plenty of looks at that, but now you see a little deeper into Yara Flor, and it's all good. We still like Yara Flor. So 2 issues. The story, was brief, but it was impactful, and I look forward to more of Yara Flor. And luckily we'll get that in May. So in May the Wonder Girl series drops, and I'm excited about that. That's gonna be awesome. Venom. Let's move on to Venom. We'll switch to Marvel, and the only thing better than having a King in Black issue is to have a Venom issue. So it's virtually the same thing. Donny Cates is writing both, and they both directly tie into the same story, which I guess is what's allowing them to only do 5 issues of King in Black and still tell this story, right? I was talking to the guys earlier this week about the fact that this is only 5 issues and we're already 3 into it. How are they going to wrap all this up so quickly? But then when you see that, when you recognize that Venom is tied directly into this story as well, you're kind of doubling up your issues. forget all the other tie-ins. The other tie-ins, also are connected here, but Venom is directly, a part of the story. It's an extension of the story. So, um, big issue. Let me just say this: they start with a speech from Peter Parker that was like, "Wow, that was something else. That was nice. He was inspirational in speaking to Eddie Brock's son Dylan and talking him through this scenario. It was just a really compelling, powerful speech that he gives him, and shows a side of Pete that's like, man, if the day comes when Marvel ever decides to let him be a father, Pete will be all right in that role. I mean, this was good. Um, and then you know Dylan Dylan just dug right in, and you get to see some more of Eddie in the hive mind kind of thing. Um, you know, big big part played here by Flash Thompson, and I suspect we've not seen the end of Flash Thompson. I suspect we'll see more of him very soon, and looks like we're heading um, towards the climax of this King in Black story. So Venom was again, the art on this one was really good. The storytelling was tight. The dialogue was fantastic. This was a top notch comic as well. Um, Star Wars: The High Republic #2. That was another one on our list for this week. That was a big one. Wow, this again. This was a good comic. It it doesn't have it doesn't feel groundbreaking to me. Uh, it's not set, I guess, so far in the past of the Star Wars universe that it doesn't feel too very different from Star Wars of, say, the Clone Wars era. So, on one hand, it's exploring new territory. On the other hand, is it? I mean, it's just a bunch of Jedi, you know, running around doing the same old things that Jedi do from a certain point of view. Um, I like the characters. I think probably the one-armed reptilian master is my favorite character thus far, simply because he stands out, because he's different from all the others. He's got some issues. He's got some baggage, and he's got some trauma in his past that connects to the Nile. Um, they haven't really shown their heads too much in the comics yet. Uh, this was sort of the first real glance at him, and it was a passing glance. But uh, I haven't been listening to the audiobooks or reading the books of the main thrust of the High Republic series. Everything I've done is just the comics so far, but I like it well enough. It's not something that just is mind blowingly new, but I love all the Star Wars stuff. So just further adventures of Jedi wandering around in the Star Wars universe, that's good enough for me. And this is well done enough to garner my attention. So again, kudos on this one. Uh, Future State. I will touch on a couple of other Future State comics here. I'll talk a little about Swamp Thing, Future State Swamp Thing. This turned out to be a fun story. Again, 2 issues and this one's done. It's over. Probably no lasting effects from this one. Not something that is going to take root. Swamp Thing pun. Not something that's going to take root and grow into anything bigger necessarily. But kind of a cool little post-apocalyptic sci-fi adventures, sort of. Felt like a little bit of maybe some classic sci-fi storytelling there. It was good enough. The art was really good. Excuse me. The art was really good. Um, the story, it wrapped itself up pretty nicely in just 2 issues, and it was entertaining. I liked it. No complaints about Future State Swamp Thing at all. Again, it's nothing that I can see taking root and going anywhere different. This pretty well wrapped up its story. I mean, it just did. Uh, you know, I don't know how they would continue this without undoing much of what they did in this issue. So, but as just a two issue standalone arc, it was good. The next Batman, number 3, I believe this was. I'm liking it. The more we get into the Gotham stuff, and the more we get into Tim slash Jace's turn as the Batman, I'm liking it more and more. Uh, you know, he isn't necessarily on Yara Floor level for me, but of the new introductions, he I'd read more about him certainly, and I guess I will, as Second Son has been greenlit as a digital production. So I will definitely be checking that out after this is all over. Yeah, all the Gotham stuff ties together really well and has been one of the more cohesive things that Future State has produced. And next Batman is good enough to hold my attention. It's not groundbreaking necessarily, but you did get to see a little something more from Tim slash Jace in this one. I still don't really understand why the name change, but maybe that'll be explained later. Um, so to make a long story short, there's a couple, and there was some uh, their child was messed with in a way it should not be messed with, and the man who did the messing, well, they killed him, and um, so the Batman the Batman goes, to get him first, but then when he finds out what's going on, he holds up just a little bit, and then the magistrates show up, and he ends up defending them from the magistrate, and makes a deal with one of the cops to bring them in uh, safely to this cop, which was an interesting thing because he's approaching justice in an interesting way here. He absolutely understands for what they did and why they did it, but they committed murder, and he can't let that slide. So they need to face justice. They need to face a trial, and leave it up to a jury of their peers to decide what to do with them. But you know the magistrate's method, he's not going to let that happen either. So in a terrible twist, the husband ends up turning against him, and doesn't want to go to jail at all, I guess, and face the trial. So he attacks him, and that's how the issue ends, with the sudden but inevitable betrayal. Um, we'll see where the story goes from there. Again, it's enjoyable enough. It's nowhere near on the level of Wonder Woman, but it was good, and I will continue to follow those stories. Uh, King in Black tie-ins. There were multiple King in Black tie-ins from Marvel this week. One of the more prominent ones for me was the Black Knight. I feel like this is going to be something. They're at least teasing this out like it's going to be something important, that the Black Blade here is involved in all this. Um, I guess I was caught off guard by the way they wrote the Black Knight in this one. That he was kind of bumbling, and they played it for laughs a little more than I was expecting. I didn't realize they'd gone that route with his character, and maybe this is the first time that's happened, or maybe that's where they've been going for a while, and I wasn't aware of it. they didn't come off that way to me in the symbiote Spider-Man story, where they started, bringing this into prominence, that the Black Blade has a connection to Null and the symbiotes. So I was just caught off guard by the fact that they're playing him for laughs a little heavier than I thought they would. Not sure how I feel about that, to be honest, but um, a good enough issue. I don't know that. Let me put it this way: if they don't do something big with him and with the Black Blade, then I don't know what the point of all this was, right? Why you did the symbiote Spider-Man, and then you know this one shot. What was all that about? If you don't do something serious, if that doesn't tie into all this pretty heavily somehow, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to or not. There seem to be a lot of threads out there as possible things to be involved with fighting Null that haven't really paid off yet. I hope they do in some way. Um, Also, there was King in Black: The Marauders, which was a rare entry into this whole thing from the X Men, and that one was a little disappointing. It was just sort of, I don't know. It just it felt like kind of a bland comic to me. Um, I was initially very much on board with the Marauders because it was kind of a cool concept, and I liked the blend of characters. But this didn't seem like a good fit. This just didn't seem like it was woven very well into the fabric of King in Black, and it it didn't have the energy. It was kind of bland, to be frank about it. Um, Gwenom, uh, King in Black Gwenom versus Carnage. I'll just be straight with you. That one doesn't move me at all. The art is kind of manic, and it's just not compelling. It's a lot of fighting that doesn't accomplish anything. Just page after page after page of fighting, 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 and talking at each other while you're fighting, but it doesn't achieve anything. And by the end of the issue, Gwenom has had a run in with Null himself somehow, and you know that was just sort of what the heck. And then nothing has been accomplished by the end of the issue. She's still chasing the Mary Jane Carnage character. Doesn't move me. I think there may be another issue of this, but I'm not going to read it. I'm just not going to read it. So uh, that one was a little more on the disappointing end of the scale. Deep Beyond from Image Comics was one that Paul and I both had on our list. It is, if you're watching on YouTube, it is the image here on my screen. Um, it was a number one. This was the first issue. It's a brand new series, and we've been trying to do a little more with Image as the show continues here. We're trying to broaden our horizons and broaden everybody else's horizons a little bit as well. So consider this my official review of Deep Beyond. Meh, meh. Disappointed because I was really hoping this was going to be a kind of grab you right off the jump kind of comic, and it didn't. It The problem I have with the comic is the storyline is very scattered. It's not a cohesive tale. You have something that happens at the beginning with no context whatsoever. You don't start to get any context until fairly deep into the story, and you never get satisfactory explanations for anything that's going on. Like, I'm always fine with jumping right into a story, but then you have to give some explanation for what's going on through the course of the action that's going on. And I don't need to know all the details, but I need to understand what world I'm in and how this world works and who the main players are. And that that just hasn't really happened in this first issue. I don't particularly understand who any of these people are. I don't understand why I should care what they're doing. I don't understand what's happened to the world. There's threats, but I don't know what the threats are. It didn't pull this all together well at all. And um, it might have been a big revelation that this character had a twin sister, and aha, look, you're the twin sister. i- If we knew anything about them at all, but I don't know who the girl is in the first place. So, other than her name seems to be Pam. Okay, her name is Pam. She has red hair, and something has happened to her at the beginning of the issue. I'm not sure why the revelation of her having a twin sister should knock my socks off. I I don't understand who Pam is. Why should I care who her sister is? It just it seems like they crammed a little too much into the first issue and moved the story along too quickly without really giving us any sort of sense of pace to it at all. There's no building tension. It just jumps frenetically from one scene and one situation to another with no real regard for whether you understand what's going on or not. So, uh, not thrilled with the first issue. Not thrilled with it at all. Now, look, Heather and I have a rule when it comes to television shows. We give them 3 episodes. It's the 3 episode rule. You give it three. If it's marginal, you give it three. If it's horrible, you cut ties whenever you want to cut ties. But if it's marginal, you give it 3 episodes. Um, in the world of comics, I have a 2 episode or a 2 issue rule. I'll give anything 2 issues to check it out. I even did that with the Scumbag, which was that first issue was trauma inducing to read because of just how horrible this character and you know everybody around him is. But I even gave that one 2 issues. So I will give Deep Beyond 2 issues, but it's gonna have to settle into a rhythm of its storytelling pretty quickly to hold my attention. Otherwise, I'm done. So that's a disappointment in a week of, generally speaking, very good comics and some exciting stuff. So next week we'll see. I'm not going to talk about next week because that's Paul's job when we meet again for Paul's pull list, and I don't want to steal his thunder. Um, Maybe they'd have to start calling me Shez Bryan if I was stealing someone's thunder and lightning. Yeah, Shez Adam, Shez Adam. Okay. All right. So yeah, some terrible news from the world of comics. Some good news from the world of comics. Some really fantastic comics this week. Some meh comics this week. All in all, it comes out to be a good week to be a fan of comic books, though. And there's more to come as more of Future State wraps up next week, and the King in Black continues to roll on towards some sort of epic conclusion. And we'll be right here to discuss all these things with you. And again, let me remind you guys, somebody needs to win this pair of Doom shot glasses. They're pretty sweet. They look like shotgun shells, which is cool. I probably should have shown a picture of them here on the YouTube channel, but regardless, they're cool. Um, they're free. If you just be the first person to follow the link in the show notes, in the description, that that plainly says what it is. Go there, leave us a message. You can ask us a question, leave us a comment. We'll put you on the show. We'll put that comment on the show if you want. If not, tell us, we won't put it on there. But somebody needs to do this. And listen, there's more of you guys now. Our audience is growing week by week. There's more of you now than there were last week, so there's new ears hearing this. somebody go follow the link, leave us a voice message, and you will be featured on the show if you want, and you will get this sweet matching Doom shot glass set. So join me in a few days as Paul Davis returns, his triumphant return, for Paul's pull list, and we look ahead at the comics coming out next week, and we'll talk about some other things as well. And it's always a fun time. So join us next week. This is Bryan Lamb signing off for Tales from the Longbox.